listening to Live and Onboard podcast. This is Tony Milazzo, your host. We are in Nashville in the studio, and my guest today is Marc-Alan Barnette, singer, songwriter, and mentor, and many other things.
That would be me.
Right.
How you doing, man?
Good
to see you, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're here.
Appreciate it.
This guy's energy is amazing. We were just hanging out talking before we went on air, and he has so much to say and so many good things. And my God, it's like a gold rush when I listen to you.
Thank you very much. Well, when you're in this town for 37 years, you kind of learn a lot of things, when to say things and when not to say things. So I hope I'll observe both of those.
Well, I think the when not to say things is pretty important for most people when they first get here, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Open
Open mouth
green.
insert foot.
Yeah.
And today everything is a YouTube and Instagram and TikTok moment. So, you say things or play songs and stuff, and kind of you go, why did I do that? Well, that stuff stays up there forever. Yeah. And so you kind of have to be careful. But it's okay. If you get to know people and you're in a great town, it kind of comes organically.
Yeah, I love it here. Nashville's amazing.
Yeah, good.
Amazing.
And you're on your third year.
Third year.
That's right. Third year freshman.
Yeah, you said that earlier. You said third year freshman. I was like, I think I'm at least a sophomore.
Yeah, I know you feel like, and some people do go a little faster. There's a joke. It's a 10-year town, but it takes about not just about to get your skills up to speed. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But it's the people that you know. You have to have people who are in positions that can get you in. People who get you in the better gigs. People that can get you in the back door publishing companies. People who get you in with other potential co-writers.
Yeah.
And that takes a while. That's the political aspect.
Yeah, I think it's like anywhere else,
It
right?
is.
I mean, it's all about the relationships. Yeah. I came from Los Angeles.
That's right.
I started in New York. Now I'm in Nashville. Very, very similar.
Yeah. You should find a bunch of California people here. California people and New York people have come continuously here, so you should find a bunch of like-minded people, things that you've gone through the same thing, and that's part of it too.
Although I'm loving these Nashvillians.
Yeah.
People in the South are just so friendly,
Right?
So eager to help you.
Right.
Where I found in Los Angeles, not everybody's so eager to help you.
Yeah. Well, here everybody kind of comes in with the mindset that you got to build allies, you got to build teams.
Yeah.
L.A. and New York tend to be, it's me. I'm gonna do this stuff. I've got it. Let me knock down the walls.
Right.
Here, you realize that you're not going to knock down any walls. You got to get along with people because there's always somebody ahead of you in line. There's always somebody who can help you along, and you don't want to tick anybody off.
Yeah. No burning bridges.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so then you find these people are just generally pretty nice. There's always somebody new. There's always somebody who's been here a little longer than you, and you can pick up information from them all the time. And that's really the key. That's how you build the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. The relationships are everything.
It's everything. It's the R word.
Yeah.
Relationships. Yeah.
There is so much talent here. It's amazing. I go out and see shows. That's the great thing about Nashville. You can go out any hour of the day, any night of the week, and see several acts. Yeah. It's just amazing.
And then due to the internet, we got a lot of people that think they're very talented, and they come in, and those people tend to not last very long. But, all in all, if you just be nice to people, there's a writer, Don Schlitz, who wrote The Gambler and wrote most of the stuff of the 90s, late 80s and 90s. And he told me one time, he said, you'll hear the word politics in everything. And it is. Everybody's got a political thing. But it's also, there's another word that has the same root, and that's called politeness. Just be polite and be nice, and it comes around to you.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's like, duh, yeah, but how many people want to be with a jerk? How many people want to, there's far too many people who just come in and they want to knock the walls down, and you really just got to assimilate. You just got to adapt, but it can be a great place.
Yeah, I love it here. Yeah. So you originally weren't here in Nashville. Mm-hmm. Where did you come from?
I came from Birmingham, Alabama. Oh. I grew up in Birmingham in the South, and I started doing music in 1974. I was 14. and I was in bands. And in 1988, in 1984, a guy that I had gone to school with, and I kind of formed this band, and it adapted into a pretty big band. It was kind of in the Bon Jovi, Loverboy Journey kind of era, and we were in a nationwide battle of the bands called the MCA Miller Highlight Rock Riches National Talent Search.
MCA meaning the record label?
The record label,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
MCA and Miller Beer sponsored it. And had about 30,000 people around the country that all submitted to local radio stations. The first runners-up, the people that came in second, always seemed to do pretty well. 1981 was a group called Twisted Sister. 1982, a guy named John Bon Jovi. They came in second, and so we get in this thing, and we end up winning our little Southeast thing, and we're flown to Los Angeles. We got to play the Palace Theater. We got to do our show, and we won.
All right.
And then you start finding out about all of these contests, just like American Idol and The Voice. Once they're over. They're on to the next contest. And we did get an MCA record deal, but they're kind of they're just kind of promotional deals, basically.
Yeah.
And it took us a couple of years to get out of that. By that time, the band broke up, and I met a guy in Birmingham who had lived in Nashville for 10 years, a guy named Ron Muir. And I started getting together with him, and he showed me how to write for this market. And I made trips up, and I came up here and I saw people with just an acoustic guitar and a vocal that just blew me away. And I said, this is where I got to be. So I uprooted my life, moved to Nashville, got a cut my first night in town on a girl named Shelby Lynn.
Wow.
And
first night in town. How does that happen?
Well, again, talk about the relationships. I was the first one to sign up at a place called Douglas Corner. Doesn't exist anymore. And I was the last one to play. There were 17 people that all came in and played before me because the featured guest invited all her friends to come play. And so I was there 1:45 in the morning with 3 people in the bar. One was the owner, one was a bartender, and there's a guy throwing darts at the back of the bar. And I played my 3 kind of funny songs, short, kind of comedic songs, because everybody else had been depressing as hell. And and the guy throwing darts came up to me and he said, man, you got some cool, funny stuff. You got a tape? At that time it was cassettes, And I did, and I gave him one. I didn't have my phone number on the tape, but I just kind of go on about my business. I started playing, and I started doing all this stuff, and I ran back into him 6 months later. Said, man, they're trying to find you at Tree Publishing. It's the biggest publisher in Nashville, because the tape was fully recorded. I'd recorded it here in Nashville. All the songs hit right where you want them to. And so I ended up going to meet these people over Tree. You talk about how random and how weird this thing is. They didn't know who I was. I had the same name as a banjo player in town, and they kind of all didn't want a banjo player, but they heard the songs. They're playing my songs on the vice president's office, and a guy's walking down the hall going to the bathroom, and he hears this song, and he sticks his head in, and he says, who is that? We said, we don't know. We think he's a banjo player. We don't know how to get him. But it turned out that was the guy who discovered Tammy Wynette and George Jones. That was Billy Sherrill, and he was producing Shelby Lynn for a movie with Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson television movie called Another Pair of Aces. And she was on at Tree Publishing on CBS Records, and it was a CBS movie of the week. So it all just kind of fell in there. But you have to have a song that's interesting, that fits a certain thing. Have to have it presented well. You have to get their attention, have somebody on the inside helping walk that thing up. And that's what happened.
Small world, too, huh?
It is. It is. And then as years go by, you meet all these people. From that, you just meet all of these people, from musicians to writers to producers, and that is what a career is. Yep. It's just a bunch of relationships. Sometimes they connect with others. Sometimes they don't do anything. Sometimes they disappear. But you will always meet somebody. Through any person you meet, you'll meet a dozen other people.
Right.
It's just the way it works.
And you got to really love this, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I was always an entertainer. So anything that I could do to entertain, I could do funny stuff. I could do kind of rock stuff, bluesy stuff. I'm kind of a Ray Charles Eagles kind of guy. I call my music in your face country soul. And so if you had Ray Charles and the Eagles have a train wreck, that would be me. Big bluesy voice, big chorus to sing along. And so I just always liked watching people light up. Oh, what, the little ideas, and oh my gosh, that's cool. That was always a big thing. I have kind of a big voice, and it kind of helped me get some doors open. And then there's the other side, what happens with the music business. Things will change on you. You don't, trends will change. I was kind of a blues, R&B, country singer. There were guys like T. Graham Brown, Travis Tritt. There were Delbert McClinton, all these people that were doing kind of the same thing. And 1991, this guy from Oklahoma comes in wearing the cowboy hat and the shirts and the jeans, and that was Garth Brooks, and it changed the entire face of country music. And all the soul guys have kind of got shelved, and that's the other thing that happens. You'll have deals that get really close, and you're working with people, and then bam, it'll change on you. You can't let that do anything. You just got to keep up going. And that's what I've been lucky enough to do.
Just be yourself too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Yeah, I wrote that too. But it is.
You say so many great things that need to be on T-shirts and hats and all.
I'm a walking meme. I'm a meme before there were memes. You in this town, this is the funny thing. In this town, it is a big town. There's a lot of people in it, but everybody knows somebody else, and you will, if you are not yourself, if you're not just comfortable in your own skin and not yourself, it'll come back to bite you on the butt. Can't believe how many people that I've seen blow their entire careers away because they said the wrong thing to somebody they already knew. They didn't realize they didn't know them, and that person happened to be an A&R person at a record company, you know? And so you kind of have to be who you are. But we all want to be, we all want ourselves to be better versions of ourselves. Sometimes that just takes time, you know? And it's not like, you go to L.A., it's like they're not pretentious people out there at all.
No, not at all.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, there are. And that's a lot of the thing. This town is kind of small, so reputations will precede you. That's good and bad.
You can't have an ego.
You have a certain ego, and I think that it comes through a sense of accomplishment within yourself. You have a certain skill set that you're comfortable with and feel good about, but you're always wanting to build on that.
Yeah. And
so as you meet people, as they start coming in, you start picking things up, and it just helps your overall approach, so being yourself is one of the most important things. Being nice.
Yeah.
God. You ever been to a party and there's one person who's just pissed off at the world and he's over in the corner, or she's over in the corner? Nobody wants to go around.
Yeah, you can't wait till they leave.
That's right. Well, what kills me is there's so many songwriters that get up and they're ready to play that thing, and they play the most angry, depressing stuff in the world, and it's like being around that person, And what is so bad is you get, particularly girls do this, I call it ACSS, Angry Chick Singer Syndrome, and you'll have the first one do some inner therapeutic songs like listening to the shower scene in Psycho. The next person will go, well, she did that one. Here's mine. And then, and it's like you get into this. Yeah. I didn't know I was coming to a therapy session. What is it? So you kind of have to look at your overall material too. You kind of have to look back and am I going into that? Because you get on these writers' nights and you get 30 people playing. That's 90 songs. When you got 70 to 80% of those songs being pissed off about something.
Oh yeah.
You realize, I think maybe I'll hold on to my little thing. So but that's all part of it.
And sometimes the tempos, they're always
slow. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lots of breakup songs. If there's like 5 or 6 of those in a row that they break out, I go with something.
We call it a house
tempo.
ballad with a side order of wine. And that's it. No, it is. And a lot of songwriters are not necessarily performers.
Yeah.
And so playing those slow ballads are easier for them to sing and play.
Yeah.
Again, on the 8th day, God created the co-writer. His first one was Moses. And so you start meeting other people who can play better than you, and you start getting yourself up. Or if you're a good player, you can offer some help to somebody. Some of the things that I have seen, things that songwriters, talking to Wayne a few minutes ago, and he just talking about not having the lyrics down what he'd like to right now. And I've seen so many people who are musically driven who offer their services to play for somebody, and that opens up a whole nother little avenue for them. And so they are helping support that person,
right?
And that person will usually, it will come back your way. So that's kind of a thing, putting yourself out there in a lot of different ways.
Right. And he's really talented at that.
Yeah,
we're talking about Wayne Norton music,
sorry.
and that's my audio video guy.
He's the dude. He's
he's here making it happen with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But once we're on this subject, co-writing and songwriting, for people who don't know or have maybe written some songs themselves, didn't work with anybody, maybe you can unravel that for us, how that works.
Well, you're trying to get out of your own way a lot of times. There are some people that come, they're very accomplished, and they come in and they can write and sing pretty well. But this town, the bar gets higher and higher. You start getting around people who are a little bit better, and everybody can learn something. And we had talked a little bit about finding you suddenly that 4.5, 5 minute song that you've been so proud of, it doesn't quite pay off like you'd like it to. So working with other people, and that's the co-writing. This is a 100% co-writing town. That's, if you go back throughout history and you look when Nashville got started in 1955, it got started. You look at the solo written songs throughout history. There aren't that many. There's Christopherson, there's a few people, but most of them have co-writers. And basically, if you went through the New York thing, when you started, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Elton John and Bernie Taupin, most songs are co-written because usually there was a composer and a lyricist. And Nashville kind of built into that, where we kind of like the camaraderie. And if you go to the Music Row area, which originally were a bunch of little houses all next to each other,
right,
that's where all the business kind of got done. That's where the publishing companies were, and everybody was writing. And if you're writing with someone who is working with an artist, that suddenly makes you a little more accessible to that artist, because you're writing with them who are working with them.
Right.
It's all about who knows you and building your way up. So the co-writing is part of it, that. Then it's also in the skill set. When you start finding people that say things in a really interesting way, and you're just going, oh my God, how'd that work? And you sit down and work with them, and you've got a long line, and they'll say the same thing in half the time, much more efficiently. And you'll go, how did you do that? Well, writing hundreds of songs, because that's the way it works, and you're benefiting from their experience. So you're going for the song, but it's also the relationship. That relationship is going to pay off. And you saw me a couple of weeks ago play. There were 9 of my songs played in a round with 4 people. That's what you're trying to do. It multiplies the force multiplier.
By the way, that was amazing.
Thank you very much.
That was
appreciate you
one
being
of the best rounds I've seen in Nashville.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Your energy on when you're playing, and your songs, the tempo. We talked before about the length is important. Not being lengthy.
Right.
Your songs were never more than 3 minutes, really.
Yeah.
And everything was high energy. Nothing about breakups and wah. And
right. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's a reason for that. And we're talking about guitar pulls. Guitar pulls are an old Nashville tradition. It actually got started behind Tootsie's down there upstairs. And it was people like Christopherson, Willie Nelson, it was Harlan Howard. All these guys would go up late at night when the bar closed down. It closed down about 11 o'clock. And they had a back room back there, and they'd all sit around and they'd play songs for each other. Called it a guitar pull because you literally had to pull the guitar out of somebody else's hand if you wanted to play. Right. Roger Miller, and all these guys. And they would just offer kind of suggestions on each other's songs. And today that would be a co-write. In that time, it was just you're just kind of getting to know each other. And, you can imagine being in Laurel Canyon in the 70s when it was James Taylor and the Byrds and the Eagles, all these guys sitting around living rooms, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That's a guitar pull. You know, you get into the guitar pulls here where you have sometimes 20, 30 people, and it takes a long time for this to come around to you. So you start in the back of your mind, your little clock goes off. Okay, I'm going to have to make sure my songs are short because it's taking forever to get around here, you know? Yeah. And all of this is just part of the experience of being in this town. It's great to absorb things. It's great to always be around different types of people, different types of musicians, and that's what I love about it.
Right. So when you're writing music by yourself, and do you have a particular place that you write or a particular way that you write, or do you have several processes?
Well, number one, I almost never write by myself. I come from bands. The bands always brought songs and pieces of ideas and built from that. In rock music was pretty much done first. The singer would just kind of da some lyrics. You record it those days on the cassette. You would record it, and then you go back and hear what sounded like words, and you write them down. It was terrible. You know, the lyrics that you write down, I'm going, thank God nobody can hear that anymore. But I've always been around other people because I knew things that I did well. I did good grooves. I did good vocal melodic stuff, but I didn't have those pieces of the lyrics till a little bit later. And so I've always written with other people. And starting in 2000, I started teaching songwriting because all the other things, the music songs started losing their value, you know, and writers' deals started disappearing and drying up because streaming was coming in. And so people started asking me to come to their songwriter workshops and start working with them. And then one guy was a teacher, Cliff Nelson, said, you know, what we need, because I'm always, what can I do to help you? You know, he says, well, we live in L.A. You live in L.A. and you live Orange County, and says if you're in California, you spend 6 hours a day in traffic if you're trying to go write with anybody.
Yep.
We come to Nashville, so his group would come to Nashville. Nobody will write with us. We don't even understand the mechanics of how does this work. And so we develop what we call the write-up songwriting lesson. You're always trying to write up. That means write with somebody better or more well-placed. And so the idea was it's just like a guitar lesson or a piano lesson. It's about 2 hours, and I would sit with these people, and they would bring in ideas or pieces, and I would try and get a feel. I'd listen to a couple of their songs, kind of see where they come from. And then in about 45 minutes, I generally had most of a song put together. And it brought my speed and my function up very quickly. And so that became part of my teaching thing. And that's been what I do. But I will write kind of on the front end. I'll write about 75-80% of the songs because I'm pretty fast at it and I can get it shaped down. The part of the other writer, and this is the thing about co-writing that a lot of people don't understand, it's not always 50-50. Somebody might do something real good on one thing or not so good on something else. So people that will bring this stuff in might not be able to think very, very quickly. So they take the song and they work on it, and they kind of woodshed it, and sometimes we'll get into the recording. Sometimes we'll go to full recordings. I don't even use demos anymore. And that's how you kind of get the output. And I've written about 3,700 songs since 2003.
Oh, my God.
And so I do it.
3,700 songs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, their computer all logged in there. But, you know, and not all of those are brilliant. I'd like to say I'm kind of my curve is pretty good, but it's just like anything that you do. When you play a couple hundred gigs, you're going to be better than you were before you played the couple hundred gigs. And I just had I have done some stand-up comedy, and I've done some improv.
Have you done stand-up?
Yeah, and it was terrible. It was horrible. But
really?
I learned
I
some
think you're
things
a funny
from
guy.
it.
You know, I've been a host and comedian for comedy.
Okay,
the
you know the deal.
Store.
Yeah. And improv acting and some different. So I'm able to think of scenarios pretty quickly. You know, and it's just that's my little thing. I can kind of encapsulate something pretty quickly, and particularly if somebody can tell me what type of songs. I mean, I really like kind of an Eagles thing, kind of a Chris Stapleton thing. I generally can get into that frame of mind, and so I can kind of find that vein. And we just did one, my friend Mark Monroe, we just did one called Hanging with Neil, which is a kind of a tribute to Neil Diamond, because I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan, and it's just in that Neil groove, you know. And so that's kind of what my thing has been, and then hopefully, if I do what I do right, you go and you watch these people as they're going in and they're working with other people. They're writing with other people. And you see them perform. You hadn't seen them in a few months. Alan the other night, my friend Alan Chevelle, and you see the songs that they're writing with other people are real concise, real to the point. You hang on every note. You get into it. You sing along with them, and that's the point of songwriting, is to bring people in so that they go, oh, that's my life. That's what you're trying to do.
The connection.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So my thing is I write with other people. I wrote one song with 110 people.
What?
Live on stage from Electrolux vacuum cleaners. And I did a corporate thing, and I had all these people throw stuff at me, and I'd kind of write stuff down, and then I kind of put it. So they had a screen on the back as I'm writing all this stuff down, and then I sang pretty much pieces of all the little lines that they threw in 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so we have a thing here. There's a lot of corporate work that different songwriters do, and you'll come in and they have groups, usually 5 or 6 people break into little groups, and they'll go into different rooms, and they'll usually they're here on conferences or workshops or things like that.
Yeah.
So the company will have some kind of theme, so they'll write to that. And I've written a Visa thing. I've written all kinds of different little products, but you're taking their information and then you're putting it into a shape that makes the company look good.
Yeah. Yeah, Marc-Alan Barnette is very, very, you're multi-talented. Anybody ever call you a Renaissance man?
They've called me a lot of stuff.
Oh.
Yoda is one of my favorites. Right you will. Yes.
You are a Yoda. You are a Yoda.
Yeah.
I learned so much from you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
amazing mentor.
I'm real lucky. I've been around some of the greatest writers that you can imagine, and I've just learned from all of them. I try to apply that and play it forward for other people.
Yeah. So a lot of people call you Mab. Am I able to call you Mab?
You can.
I think I've already started calling you Mab. Just your friends or everybody?
Actually, it's kind of a family tradition. My dad was Grady Ross Barnett. We called him Gerb. His dad was Herman Barnett. We called him Hab. And so I moved to town. There were 5 other Mark Barnetts, and there were 5 Marc Allens, all doing music at the same time. And so in the early 90s, all the guys went to 3 names. You had Billy Ray Cyrus and David Lee Murphy and Ricky Lynn Gregg, so Marc-Alan Barnette. All the girls went to one name. It was Shania, it was Martina, it was Reba.
Right.
And so it just kind of fell into that. But Mab is, a lot of people call me that, and I find it doesn't bother me. I answer it.
I like it.
Thanks.
It's a little shorter than the Marc-Alan Barnette thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly. Hey, Mab. Yeah.
So you told me a really neat story, since we're talking about the family and everything. When you were a little kid, you told me about a memory that you still have. I don't remember things from 3-4 years old. It's kind of tough. I don't know how people remember that, but tell everybody that story, because that was amazing.
It was 1961, and I just remember from the things later on. The only thing that I remember about the time, my parents divorced when I was 7, so I didn't remember very much with them being together. This is one of the only things that I remembered them, and it was outside of Atlanta. We lived in a place called Marietta, Georgia. And they had a thing at that time called supper clubs. And these were, you've seen movies of the 50s and 60s where everybody gets dressed up in very fancy things, wearing suits and tuxes and stuff. And you go out, and my dad at that time worked for Lockheed Aircraft. And so he went out with this corporate group of people. And I didn't remember this. I just remember a big table that we were all at. And I had a little coat, a little jacket, and shorts, and like kids do at that time. I didn't have the beanie cap, but we went out, and there were my parents and all these people that were my dad, and we're in this place that was kind of an amphitheater. There are all these tables around, everybody having dinner, and in the middle was a small stage, and there was a man playing grand piano. There was an upright bass player, and there was a saxophone player. These 3 African-American gentlemen that were playing, and I had never seen music. I'd never seen live music before, and I was just like freaked out. So to tell you what the parenting skills of the 1960s were, I just kind of wandered away from the table without my mother or father even noticing. And next thing I know, I do remember, I mean, these are just the memories that I remember. I remember going down and sitting at the edge of the piano. The stage was very small, and I'm on the edge of the piano like that, watching this man just play piano. I was freaked out. It was incredible. I felt myself being picked up, and I'm sat on the knee of this man, and he put these enormous hands over me, and he played the song Sweet Georgia Brown over mine, you know, and so I was like crazy, and then the audience goes crazy and they're applauding, and he puts me down, and my mother's standing right there pissed off, you know, because I had wandered away, and so go back, and that was what I just remembered that night. I just remembered those three guys, you know, and a couple of years before he passed away, my dad died in 1998. A couple of years before, we were riding one night, and just out of nowhere, he said, "Do you remember one night when we were in Atlanta? You know, I know you were about 3 years old, and we went out, and you went and they put you on the knee of this guy, and he was playing piano." I said, "Yeah, I remember everything about that." He says, "Do you remember who it was?" I said, "No." He says, "It was Ray Charles." And so I've literally been touched by greatness, you know. And he was doing he was doing what was called the Chitlin circuit, and he did a trio, kind of a jazz trio. And this is in the segregation days, you know. So he would play all these places to make extra money, and it was right before "I Can't Stop Loving You" came out, you know. And that's when Ray he mixed soul music and country music.
Yeah.
And years later, I have this real edgy, bluesy, soulful kind of voice, and I don't really know where it came from. It's Ray Charles.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I grew up idolizing Joe Cocker.
Oh yeah.
You know, Otis Redding. And Ray. And so as I got my music came together more and more, I kind of called it In Your Face Country Soul, which is kind of a country blues soulful kind of thing. So that's me.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Marc-Alan Barnette, you need to, because wow, I mean, the blues and that voice that comes out of you and the energy is just amazing. It figures. Ray Charles, Joe Cocker, those are my guys too. I like them. Yeah. Amazing. There's people listening out there from all over the world, all over the United States. Right. They're songwriters, maybe, right? And they're thinking about coming to Nashville. What would you tell them?
Make trips. Don't uproot your life and move here. Do as much research as you can. Everything can be found on YouTube now. I use it continuously, but study stories, biographies. Find out how people did what they did. Find things that if you're interested in music, study that music. Study the type of music that you're interested in. Learn a little bit about the history of where you're coming from. Of course, most people think history is 3 years before they were, before now. Their history is very short to most people now. If you want to come to a place like Nashville, you're going to go. You're obviously going to go to either open mics or the writers' nights. Open mic is kind of like an actor's cattle call audition in LA or New York. It's where you show up, you sign up early, and you get up and play. Writers' nights are more invited. It's generally something you earn your way into. And just get ready. You're going to stand in line. But you go to a show and you watch other people play. We play the Commodore a lot, which is one of my favorite places because it would be a huge cross section. About 30 people are going to play a night. You're going to see different things. You're going to make little mental notes of what you see, and then you'll get a chance, if you do what you should do, get a chance to play yourself, and hopefully other people will hear you, and somebody will go, "Hey, you want to come hang out, talk, have a cup of coffee, have a beer or something?" And that's where the relationships go. And then with every writer you'll meet 3 writers because they'll have friends, and you just kind of sit there and you just naturally kind of talk to people. And next thing you know, and I call the hometown connection. There's always people from where you're from. Right. I had 2 guys. I had a group of people. I had 10 people here, and then with these 2 guys from Canada. And so we're sitting around, I had these 3-day tours that I would do with these people, and everybody's telling everything. One guy says, "Well, I'm from Toronto," and I'm da-da-da-da-da. And another guy said, "Wait a minute, I'm from Toronto." They lived 8 blocks from each other.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah. And of course, now with the internet, everybody kind of gets a feeling. But you do all of those little things. And asking questions. Find if you are interested in Nashville songwriting, there's a Nashville songwriting page on Facebook, and I'm sure every other. I don't do a tremendous amount of social stuff, but pretty much everything you want to know is a Google search away. And so you kind of do some research on what you're doing, and you kind of look at your stuff. I would suggest that if you're a performer, you kind of use your phone to videotape yourself. You find out, you kind of set it away from you a little bit, like you would be looking at you from the audience.
Right.
Can you understand the words? Can you enunciate? Can you use diction? Can people understand what you're saying? If you're playing guitar, do you have some dynamics so you can get your words right out there where people can get it? Or are you trying to be Edward Van Halen? That really is interesting on a solo guitar thing. But, learn what you're doing. Get to do the best you can. If you have a writer's night, an open mic, a talent night, an open stage night in your area, go do it. Because it's like being off Broadway. Before you get here, you don't want to get on the field with the Philadelphia Eagles. You don't want to get onto that. That leads to death very quickly. So you want to get better. It's just So just build up what you can do, and then if you do what you do right, and you kind of have some common sense about you, it will kind of take on its own organic thing. But don't uproot and move. That's the one thing that I see far too many people, or people that come here, and I mean, I have seen them. I have seen them come into town, and they're coming from L.A. and New York, Chicago, where the huge taxes, and they've got a house there. They immediately find something in Nashville, and they buy something here. Next thing you know, they got a house in L.A., they got a house here. They got 2 insurance payments. So, what business would you just up and move and go start doing it? Yeah. If you wanted to have a restaurant, you're going to just set up next to McDonald's? No. So just kind of have some common sense about you.
Yeah, that's what most people do in L.A. They just show up.
Yeah.
Buy something, and then in 6 months they're like, okay,
they're broke.
I can't do this.
Today, we just have so many people that have been coming to Nashville. The internet has put so many people into the game. It's taken so much of the money out of the game, and people are just coming here, and they're all TikTok internet stars, and they come here and they get a reality check very, very quickly. Yeah. So you don't want to overextend your supply lines, and so just kind of take it, learn about it, go back, absorb it. And if you find yourself to a point where you have met writers and you got little writers groups and you got all this stuff, the guy that you saw me with the other night, Alan Chevelle, he had made about 10 trips to Nashville before he actually decided to move. He had learned he had a whole bunch of people that he wrote with. He could walk right in to begin performing. He had already lined up a job. He had already lined up a place to live, everything. That's the way you do it.
That's smart.
Yeah. And he didn't have kids, I've seen a lot of divorces come out of this town. I've seen people that will move, have their family somewhere else, and they move here, and it doesn't last. It's a very difficult thing.
You started to touch on the music as far as streaming and stuff like that. Let's talk about that a little, because people come here with the whole idea of, quote unquote, I'm going to make it, and all the money that's involved in the music business, and it's going to solve all their problems. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, people no longer want to own music. When in our day, you'd go to the record store, you get those records, you get one, you read everything. Well, people don't even want to own anything anymore. They don't want to have storage. They want to be able to listen to stuff. That's why our streaming service is there. People can just listen. Now, some people will pay for it, but how many songs, if you're paying $4.99 a month for unlimited downloading, and it's supposed to be 99 cents a song sold, how many does that pay for? 5 songs. So if you're getting thousands of songs,
right,
and so all of you can't monetize free, and most of music today has gone to free or to much less value than it once was. So you find that the people who are doing this well will have a substantial social media following. They'll have their own group. It's niching or niching. They build their own responsive things. When you can when you can get people to pay you for being you, that's when you make money. Until then, you're just going at it, and you're giving stuff back. We give CDs now. We keep wondering why we making CDs, but we keep do. But we do. There's downloads. There's legal downloads. There are people from their website. There's Spotify. There's millions of different platforms, and none of them are paying anything, because the majority of songs people are listening to about 10 to 20 seconds of, and they're going on to something else. I say the entire world of pretty much the internet are perennially spoiled 15-year-olds with a remote control. What else is on? What else is on?
They're surfing music like people used to surf TV.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And so you've got to kind of look at yourself, and sometimes it's how much money can you afford to lose, because everything costs money. If you're going to do studio, if you're going to make a trip, that all costs money. So you kind of have
money to do this.
Exactly. Yeah. You either have to have money, or you got to be very smart with what you're doing. Yeah. We find this, and we've been seeing this now for 30 years, where all the musicians started having their own home studios. Yep. Well, suddenly you have to go in and record, and they do. You get the single guys that play 20 instruments. When I got here, I met a guy named Jim Hoke who played 21 instruments, all kinds of horns, all kinds of music stuff. And he was doing my demos, and he made it sound great because he was just a magnificent player. He played with Crystal Gale, and he just was a tremendous guy. And I would go in, I'd play him just a work tape, just a cassette tape, and he would take that and turn it into a 20-piece orchestra. And it was as good as things that I had done in studios. Now, I like, when I'm doing recordings today, I work at a place called Jay's Place Studio on 17th. And Jay is kind of my George Martin. And I can bring in all these songs, and he can help me find. And, of course, I'm writing these with other people that I'm working with. It's really their project. I'm just kind of helping direct it. And so we'll bring in the actual players. And there's something about, just like everything, there's something about musicians. We get 3 or 4 guys playing at the same time, and they are really on top of what they do. They know when not to play. That's another thing about the studio musicians here. They know when not to play. They know when to support the song. And you can get these people. You get the people who are playing on the records on the radio. You can get them in most of the studios here. So doing a little research and kind of learning what you're doing, seeing where you are, that's all important. Yeah,
it's all about that Nashville sound everybody talks about too, whether it's recording, mix, master, the Nashville sound.
Yeah, and that's changed over the years because there's so many different types of music now. Nashville's not just a country thing. That used to be, the Nashville sound was a country thing, but now it's just, there's a certain musical shorthand that the players use, the certain musical shorthand that writers use, and it's all kind of a communication thing. And that's more the Nashville sound than anything. What supports the song. That's really the Nashville sound. And it can be rock, blues, rap, hip-hop. There's a lot of different influences that go on now, and they all kind of meet in the middle, too.
So I'd like to ask you about this Nashville system.
Mm-hmm.
The
number system?
Yeah, the number system.
Okay. All right.
So do you use that? Is that mostly in cover songs, or?
No, it is a musical shorthand. It came about back again in the 50s. Nashville became a recording center in 1955. There was one man who moved here permanently. It was Roy Acuff. And he started that whole kind of studio. Suddenly, there was a guy, Owen Bradley, that had a old World War II Quonset hut that was on the Music Row. The Music Row area was kind of falling down. All these houses were kind of in disrepair after World War II, and he started buying up blocks of that real estate. And there was something about that studio, the sound of that studio, when you have people like Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline and all those people back in, we're talking the 50s. And so there was something about the sound. But what would happen is half of the musicians, that were here were not professionally trained musicians. They didn't read music. Then another half did read music. Well, when you got 20 people all in a room, all playing at the same time, when that tape goes red, if somebody makes a mistake, You got to start it over again. And you would constantly have some singer get in that couldn't sing in the key that the song had been written in. So the one, if you're in the key of A, the one, it's the notes of the scale. That would be an A would be the 1, a D would be a 4, and then the E would be a 5. And that's the kind of the notes on the scale. Well, if you switched it down, then suddenly G becomes the 1, C becomes the 4, and then F, and it's all like that. And so they used it as a musical shorthand to kind of it was very quick. And so they do the number notation. Now, I can read it a little bit. I'm terrible at writing it because there are half bars, there are split bars, there are all kinds of stuff that I don't really understand. And so you have a session leader on that. But you can go into, there's a couple of writers' nights now that have bands. You take your music in there, and usually you will note on there, if you see the charts, there'll usually be a thing. It sounds like, if you got it sounds like John Cook, sounds like Springsteen, sounds like, and they'll know the kind of feel because these guys have played all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, and so that is what is music. It's the Nashville number system, and most people who do studio stuff know it. It's not totally necessary, but it doesn't hurt if you're a musician to kind of bone up on it. It's a helpful thing. Just speed things up.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to speak about before I ask you to play some songs? You going to play some songs?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I would say a couple of things. There are 4 things that are a career, particularly in this town. Number 1 is creation of the song. It's creating something unique and interesting that make people want to hear it over and over again. Second is presentation of the song, live and recorded. If something is today, it's on a camera phone, everybody puts it on the internet. Make sure it sounds and looks decent because that represents you, because you never know where this stuff's going to end up. Yep. And if you're recording in a studio, make sure it sounds great because, again, this stuff ends up everywhere. So creation of the song, presentation of the song, networking is the third, and that's just making friends. And, you're trying to get people who are attached to the industry. You're trying to get fans who are outside of the industry. So that's all networking. And the fourth is business. And you don't really have much to do with the business. That's going to either take its way or it's not. You have to educate yourself. But it all comes down to creating something interesting and something that people want to hear, presenting it where when they hear it, they want to hear it again. Networking where they'll tell their friends about you, and they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and you build a career. And then the business will or will not follow. You should be concerned about those first 3 and let the 4th one take care of itself.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Words of wisdom from Marc-Alan.
Oh, the other
Barnette.
thing. Here's the other thing. I'll say my songwriter tour. My website is musicchoosesyou.com. And my songwriter tour is what I do with people. It's a private workshop, one day or multi-days, where people come in. I listen to their songs. I'll write stuff with them. I'll take them around. I will show them. A lot of times people want different things. Some people want performance critiques, and I can kind of help with that. I can look at overall catalog. But that's what I do, the songwriting tour. Marc-Alan Barnette, Music Chooses You.
Great.
All right.
Okay, so you're going to play something for us?
I should. Should I go over to this mic here?
Yeah, before you do, what are you going to play for us?
I'm going to do 2 songs, basically because I'm tuned in drop D. One is called My Girl's Hotter, which is I wrote with an artist, Frankie Ballard, and a hit writer named Walt Aldridge. Walt's been around for many, many years, doesn't live here anymore, but it's kind of all the things that I'm talking about. It's about making songs kind of interesting, fun to listen to, that you hear some things you hadn't quite heard in that way before. You're trying to have lyrics that make people go, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then the groove that I do, I'm kind of a country blues redneck. I'm an Alabama redneck, writing with another Alabama redneck and a Michigan redneck. And the song went on to help Frankie Ballard open some doors for his first record deal, which he was on Warner Brothers, still is. And he's had 3 number 1s. This is not one of them, but that's
great.
So and you want me to go over here?
Yeah, in a second. And what else are you going to do?
And then I'm going to do Tables and Chairs.
Oh, that's a great song.
Kind of my theme song.
Great. Okay. So yeah, Marc-Alan Barnette's going to do a couple songs for us. And before you go, I want to thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And then my other question would be, are you going to come back?
Of course.
We get you back?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to talk to you some more.
I'd love to do it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, folks, Marc-Alan Barnette.
Country blues, nasty kind of stuff, about being hot. Black leather seats in the middle of August in a Texas border town. Friday night at Louie's Bar and Grill with dollar beers going down. Number 5 lunch at the Mexican diner with the extra jalapenos on the side. Radio turned up loud and proud with Dwayne Allman playing slide. 5 days in the desert without one drop of water. My girl's hotter. $10 pistol that a guy wants to sell in the alley of a pawn shop. 68 Malibu scoop on the hood shack carpet and a rag tie. Tabasco sauce and a shot of Patron, chased with some Jimmy Bean. Running through hell in long underwear soaked in gasoline. If you want a girl who can light your fire, I've got her. My girl's hotter. Hotter than the Maricopa County Jail. Hotter than a pink tube top. Hotter than 2 squirrels getting it on, tangled up in an old wool sock. Holding on to a Swisher Sweet down to the very last draw. Old wood stove over in the corner of the kitchen of my grandma. Anna Parker's daddy when she jumped out the window to meet me down by the lake. My mama when I showed up for Thanksgiving an hour late. If you want a girl who can light your fire, I've got her. My girl's hotter. Well, now hotter than the Maricopa County Jail. Hotter than a pink tube top. Hotter than 2 squirrels getting it on, tangled up in an old wool sock. My girl's hotter. That is down and dirty when you got 2 squirrels getting it on, tangled up in an old wool sock. My girl's hotter. Yeah. This turned into, I guess, my little anthem that I dedicated to all of us dysfunctional children who will not grow up, and all the long-suffering parents, grandparents, significant others who support us. Another night has ended. Crowd is shuffled out. 2 guys at the end of the bar throw their last ones down. The smoky haze has lifted. Work lights have come on. Now I'm packing up this old guitar and headed home alone. I do what I do for the love of it. Sure ain't for the bucks. Maybe some magical wondering if I look deep enough. What they see 3 hours a night is a tortured soul laid bare. Sometimes it feels like I'm playing for tables and chairs. She used to come here with me and hang on every line. Since they were all about her, I had a reason to rhyme. But she couldn't take the lifestyle of this gypsy on the move. You don't choose music, music chooses you. I do what I do for the love of it. Sure ain't for the bucks. Maybe some magical wondering if I look deep enough. What they see 3 hours hours a night is a tortured soul laid bare. Sometimes it feels like I'm playing for tables and chairs. Yeah, we do what we do for the love of it. It sure ain't for the bucks, but maybe some magical wondering if we all look deep enough. What they say, 3 hours a night, or tortured souls laid bare. Sometimes it feels like we're playing for tables and chairs. Sometimes it feels like we're playing for tables and chairs. Tables and chairs.
You've been listening to the Live and Onboard podcast with your host, Tony Milazzo. Join our Facebook group, Live and Onboard Podcast. Subscribe to Live and Onboard Podcast on YouTube. You can email us at liveandonboardpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at Tony Milazzo Live. Thanks for listening, and share this with a friend.